Welcome back, committee. We have H 877 up next, and we have Representative Graham with us from the House Ag Committee, and welcome, Rodney. And glad to have you with us. You were the reporter on the bill. And that's the general bill from the ag agents.
Yeah.
And so if you want to just kind of run through that, maybe I don't know if you met our newest member, Irene.
I do.
And I think you know the rest of us pretty well. You've been here a while. We've been here a while. So anyways, welcome, Rodney, and do a quick run through. And if we have any questions, I think Brian stayed up late making a list.
Yeah, he certainly is.
Yeah, he has a tendency to do that for some reason. I think it's to gain knowledge. But anyways, welcome, Rodney. We'll get started.
So section one, the Vermont practice program, they're just changing wording to include a lot of the water quality initiatives that was in place with, cover crop and check out. Section two is just changing the word from regulations to rules. Also, measures.
Is there a big difference in those two words?
I don't see where there's much.
I mean, if you have regulations or if you have rules.
I don't know, but technically everything is, right? The village council would say that there is. Speaking of it.
And then, weight and measures. Of the state and uniform regulation of national height and height weight is what they use now.
Yeah.
For. And then, H 5 basically just changes poultry definitions from means only domesticated birds. I was asked offline if that not domesticate a pigeon. Yeah, if you want.
Yeah.
I was asked that this morning, actually, about ostriches. Are they domesticated bird? Or crows? I mean,
If you domesticate them,
okay.
again,
Someone might ask us on the floor, I don't know.
Anything about chicken parts or anything like that?
not in this one.
Didn't know maybe we domesticated those or something. So,
Well, I think most people mean turkey or chickens.
Yeah,
yeah,
there is people who eat crows.
Really?
yeah,
Yes, you're
I
right.
could accuse people of that. Then eating
Eating
crow.
On page 6,
No fee changes or.
no, add the word and on page 12, on line 12.
Yeah.
On page 7, they're gonna offer online class that applications for
do it.
That's the side certification grant. The section D on page 7 authorizes the secretary to carry the fee.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure you're working off the same bill. I gave them the as passed by as recommended by the committee, because this hadn't come out yet. And are you using that copy, or are you using this as it came out of the house?
Came out of, I don't think, it's.
The tracking.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter, it's at the fee.
Yeah, I'm getting new copies of what passed out of the house.
No more than $75. And then a report.
Okay.
That's what that. Costs.
So you put 35 in
I think.
where on page 7 at the top,
Yeah,
did you put a fee in there? Cause they charge applicant.
I don't have it in this copy that I have, but
Ways and Means put a fee of up to $75
yeah.
because the
275,
up to 75.
up to 75,
Yeah.
okay.
And then there's supposed to be a report back
Right.
as to what the actual cost was.
The original language gave the agency discretion to set the fee,
Yeah,
and Ways and Means doesn't like to give agencies discretion to set their own fees.
that's true. Yeah. We don't like letting agencies, their departments setting their fees, that's our. So they put in up to.
They put a max and then a report back on what the actual cost would be after they've implemented it for the.
So,
That's on page 6.
yeah, so to get a pesticide certification or license. And I wanna do it online, it's gonna cost up to $75.
It could
Could be up to.
pay for the
To me, that seems very rich. But,
Well, I think that we
contract.
got a little testimony on that early on. If you do it and have to drive here to do it,
in person, yeah.
it's probably more expensive than $75, but we'll have back the agency.
Okay.
I think the cost is that they'd have to, contract and buyer.
And
Okay,
But then, section 4A was the report back. To what the actual cost was.
Okay.
And on, page 8. It's going to change in the wording of he or she to the secretary. In section 8. Open the words he or she finds that.
that's in
Just
A, Rodney. Section A.
Page 8, section 8 on line 14.
You know.
Again, on page 9, changing the words of he or she to the secretary. Section B, I want. So 00.
Committee. Yeah, how'd it do? Well, it's all good on the floor.
No questions.
Questions from committee? No. Yeah, we,
Wait a week, all night, you know.
Yeah, right.
We don't have to, you know, 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 we don't have to,
You haven't got one. You didn't-
I used to have a I mean, it was great. Looks good to me.
Looks good.
Looks good to me.
So. Should we count his vote or not?
Not yet.
Not yet.
He might change his mind.
Yeah.
Never happened.
So do you have anything else for me? Yeah. How'd your neonates bill go? You're reporting that one too?
in that committee,
Yeah, you're reporting that on the floor.
no, my place, there's. Sorry, that, it's, no. Yeah, that's the house in your house.
Yeah, a good bill.
The fuck, it's a good bill.
Unanimous vote in the committee and on in the,
No,
who wasn't?
no,
What was the voting committee? Do you remember?
8-2-1,
8-2.
Henry Carroll, myself, we go. Charlie goes to the Saps. Sure, he would go.
What about the guy from Stowe?
Jed,
He voted for it. The committee,
To get the
but he voted
medical
against it,
help?
but he voted against it on the floor.
Or
But he voted against it on the floor. Because it was a roll call vote. Oh, what?
More? Yeah, but. Yeah. I doubt, we'll probably get a roll call. If it gets to the floor.
Yeah.
Who reported that?
Mike Rice, Representative Rice,
Never heard of it.
down my way, Danby,
and,
Dorset.
Dorset,
yeah,
Big good guy from Dorset, but
yeah,
be a good uppity up ag guy.
I mean,
He's a good guy.
Yeah. And
Guy.
have to be from Dorset.
we have sand, they used to this for animal feed, but he's blind, they use it on the human feed. And spray it on apple trees, and it's not gonna go any better, it's gonna stay right there.
I'll be damned.
Yeah.
and the effective date was 29, too, I think.
for treated.
I thought it was.
Some of the, I think it was banned for household use, how many times.
Some 30.
Idea.
I thought it was 39. No,
Oh, you can amend it.
yeah, that's. It's an idea.
I hadn't thought.
Anything else, Rodney?
No, I don't think so.
No. Well, thank you for coming down and.
Always enjoy it, it's much comfortable seats. We have.
So you don't have good seats? You wanna take that away? Roll it right out the room. Well, thank you, Rodney.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for the donuts.
Yeah, thank you. Great.
They were very good, Rodney.
By the time it was this week, that was.
So maybe
Yeah, I think it worked.
maybe Tuesday you could bring us some more.
Probably be Wednesday.
Oh. Are you gonna
That's
miss,
when we're putting together.
gonna miss Tuesday?
I'll keep you on the
Yeah,
list.
yeah,
Yeah.
thanks again.
Yeah, bye-bye.
So I can do on through that, we that together. They, not just, the only changes were toward the tail end from finance.
Yeah, it's from Ways and Means. Do you want me to walk through it again, or
Well,
what do you want?
quickly, I mean,
Well, section one is the farm agronomic practice program. It's been a long time water quality program with the agency to provide financing for certain soil management practices. The big change here is they're gonna open up eligibility to third-party service providers and nonprofits like the Farmers Watershed Alliance, et cetera. who do a lot of, buying of equipment and then renting it out or lease or loaning it out to people so that farms don't have to buy their own.
So it'll allow
Right.
that to happen.
Allows that to happen.
Yeah.
The second section is the weights and measures, as I believe you all know. The agency is the entity in the state that administers and enforces weights and measures requirements. They generally implement requirements from the National Institute of Standards and Technology. And that entity has what's called the Uniform Regulation for National Type Standard. It's basically like if you have this type of scale, this model of scale, you have to identify it, and then there's criteria for evaluation of that model type's performance. And so they want to incorporate and I have the uniform type rules here if you want to look at them.
Did you look at them?
Yeah, they're basically just
What we're doing right now?
it's bringing those standards in a formal way. And they're just keeping up with the current national standards for how to evaluate these devices.
And is that a pretty standard practice for other states?
Yes, like when I was looking into it, a lot of the states have incorporated their standards into their rules. Like Montana has this from the National Institute of Standards and Technology in their rules.
Yeah.
But we just cross-reference instead of having to go through rulemaking, the time and expense to
Yeah.
put.
Could I just interject? Rule versus regulations, is that just a ledge council preference or is there an actual distinction?
So there is an actual distinction. The Administrative Procedure Act under Title III gives agencies the ability to adopt rules. But prior to that, agencies often called what they adopted regulations, because that's what the feds call them. It's funny, it's the feds have the Code of Federal Regulations, right? But whenever people talk about the shorthand of what the feds do, they call it the rules. Here, we have rules, but people shorthand call them the regulations, like the Fish and Wildlife Board. They literally in their rule says, these rules shall be known as the Fish and Wildlife Board regulations.
So,
Wow.
So,
but this came about with the Administrative Procedures Act? Because we've had the Administrative Procedures Act now for nearly 40 years.
right, and one of the things that Ledge Council does in the Statutory Revision Authority is we're going through, and whenever we see regulation, we change it to rule. But it's
taking you 40 years to get to
Oh,
this?
well, we've only started doing that revision authority maybe like 10 years ago.
Okay.
But it's sometimes hard to convince the agencies to change. Like the Department of Fish and Wildlife didn't want to change regulation to rule, and we're like, you don't have authority to adopt regulation. You have authority to adopt rule. And so and it's also partly confusing because the feds, theirs are called regulations, but then they call them rules. So that's, I know, people like Vince Luzzi have brought that up before, and he's right. Regulations is a federal term and rule is a state term, but for years, agencies have been using the term regulation.
That's really helpful. Thank you. I've read that before.
On page 4 in the contagious diseases and animal movement, you I think saw in your bill also the effort to move towards consistency in the use of terms, including the use of the term poultry as any domesticated bird. It does include any bird that is raised for human consumption. So it is chickens, turkeys, ducks, geese, rat types, which are emus, quail, et cetera. So anything that's raised for human consumption, not your parakeets, maybe some pigeons, you know, guava is a pigeon and people eat it. So I don't know of anyone raising squab in the state, but
What about, that's where they,
they're listed, yeah.
What was that, Bobby? My game?
Pheasant. Oh,
pheasant?
Oh, yeah.
We have
Domesticated pheasant
Yeah.
are,
Poultry.
considered,
yeah. Mhm.
so they're domesticated.
Right, like quail can be wild or domesticated and. On page 5, I think you heard from Representative Graham what is going on here. As you know, pesticide sellers, certain sellers of pesticides and applicators of pesticides have to be certified. They have to take training and then they have to take a test. Currently, the test is provided in person and free of charge by the agency, but they would like to start providing an alternative online option. As you previously discussed, the original language would have allowed the agency to set the fee at its own discretion. Ways and Means move that to the discretion. The secretary may charge a fee of up to $75. And it is intended to cover the cost of the training provided by the vendor.
And what would be allowed under the, is it over on the previous page, dealer's license, I think those things are already online.
No, the examinations are not online. You could probably apply for a license online, but you have to do your certification. And that is currently an in-person test. Free of charge unless you fail. If you fail, it's a $35 charge, I believe.
So, but now they're gonna move that, so you could do it online,
You do it online.
but it's gonna up to 75.
But they still have to maintain the in-person free of charge testing as well.
That's what we heard of the agents. Which I, way back in the
Yeah.
beginning. Was it's, even if they charge $75, it would be cheaper than driving to Montpelier and doing the exam, because you're gonna lose a half a day. But it doesn't say it shall be 75.
Up to, and that's for the first year, because on page 6, line 14, sec 4A, the agency reports back to you December 15th with proposed fee for electronic administration based on the cost of the contract the secretary enters with the vendor.
So I know that we don't normally like agencies or departments to set their own fees. But to me, if you say up to, does that mean that whatever charge certifier or applicator A gets is gonna be the same as B, C, D, E, and F? Or can they take anything between $1 and 75?
They do have discretion to set what that amount is going to be, and in my opinion, to set it differently depending on the examination. One examination might be longer, and therefore the vendor might be charging more for that examination than they would for the other examination. So there might be a need for variable fees depending on the type of examination.
Doesn't that strictly speaking mean they can kind of set their own fee?
It does, they have some discretion here, but it's a cap.
Yeah.
And it's only intended to be a cap for a year until they report back with the actual cost
Excellent.
of the vendor contract. Section 5 is just renaming what is currently called the fertilizer and lime chapter to reference that it now regulates plant amendments, biostimulants, and soil amendments. And then section 6 in that same fertilizer, lime, plant amendment, etc. chapter. The agency loves defining sale to mean any kind of sale through any outlet, catalog, telephone, the internet, or any electronic means. And so that's basically for consistency with how they define distribute in other chapters as well. Section 7, the agency, like the General Assembly and other agencies, is moving towards gender conformity in their language. And so section 7 is a gender conformity change, he or she to the secretary. Section 8 is also a gender conformity change, just striking the unnecessary use of he or she. And then section 9 replaces he or she with the secretary. Section 10, the effective date is July 1 of this year.
Well, it's pretty straightforward.
It is the agency's proposed bill, and as it was divvied up between you and the House probably got some more minor, less substantive changes than you.
When they all come. I don't know who did the division. Who did that one? Thanks. Irene just,
I'm grateful. I'm only
Yeah.
gonna have to spend 20 minutes on the floor today. But for a while, I like those meetings are 3:01.
20 minutes.
No, I don't
yeah,
care.
you want to do it as quick.
I will, trust me.
If you have to skip a whole
Yeah,
page.
Okay.
Questions for Michael? Nope. What other great things have you done for the health? Bills.
Well, I'm coming in tomorrow to talk to you about H706, the neonicotinoid pesticide bill,
You've seen that.
and 614, the land improvement fraud and timber trespass bill.
That's a good one. The, I wonder, did that come out of ag or?
Started in ag and then it went to judiciary.
Yeah.
Judiciary made some significant changes.
Sears kind of wanted us to, his plate, he said it's pretty full.
Yeah.
So, but boy, they got real good penalties in that bill. As I heard what they got, and that didn't sound very interesting to me.
You can go to prison for, depending on the scale and scope of your crime, because they're both crimes. Land improvement fraud and timber trespass are both crime. And so you can, some of the violations are felonies.
Is it mandatory prison time or it's
No.
up to the judge?
It's up to the judge.
Oh, hell, well, we haven't got to worry about anybody going to jail. I mean, you know, hell, you can murder people and not go to jail once you. Is there such a thing as mandatory jail sentence?
Vermont generally does not, use mandatory prison time.
Oh, we have to be nice. Yeah, I mean, these guys will go cut for the neighbor. And, I mean, if you aren't sitting right there watching, they'll move right across the boundary and cut yours and they won't even thank you for the wood. You just take it and run.
Right, and so that would be timber trespass when you go onto somebody else's property without their permission. And you harvest a tree or remove their forest products without that is timber trespass. Land improvement fraud, when you enter a contract with someone to do something like harvesting or site work, grading, and you fail to perform the contract, you failed to perform the contract, and then you fail to provide a remedy. Fail to
Thank you so much.
pay back what was paid to you, fail to perform the contract in timely manner, fail to come up with a schedule, or fail to pay the homeowner, because for harvesting activities, what may happen is a harvester knocks on your door. I'd like to offer my services to you to harvest some of your trees, and you say, okay, I do need some of my trees harvested under my forest management plan. The harvester says, here's my contract. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna harvest those trees. I'm gonna take them to the mill, and then you'll get 60% of the proceeds and I'll get 40% of the proceeds. But then the harvester never comes back. Never pays you.
So they're both in this
They're
bill?
both in there. The timber trespass is no contract. Somebody's going onto your property and taking your timber products.
The other,
Land improvement, there's a contract, and they knowingly violate it and fail to remedy it.
yeah, because I think they do both. The same color does. Well, it'll be interesting to have, some of these land that have written up forest management plans and for landowners, and then had that violated by these people.
Yeah.
Did you sit through any of the testimony?
So this is my third time working on timber trespass in the 20 years that I've been here. So I've sat through a lot of testimony on timber trespass and have heard a lot of stories. The one that really is troubling is the harvester goes onto someone else's property from a site where they had a contract, goes onto somebody else's property, harvests everything that's valuable, right? Tears up the property, violates the ANPs, leaves all the residue, all the landing, everything's just a mess. And then it's gone, and then the property owner gets violated underneath their current use plan because
because they overcome,
they violated the ANPs,
get kicked out.
get kicked out, and like that's the troubling
Wow.
Is that
scenario.
in this bill?
That is not in the bill, but it will allow for prosecution of those people that are doing that.
Is that? And then putting mortgage on, or you can put a thing on their equipment.
Right, so that was removed. So the House Committee on Agriculture, as the bill was introduced, would have allowed law enforcement to seize and then effectively go to a forfeiture proceeding for the sale of any equipment used in the course of a crime. So anything from a chainsaw to a feller muncher, skidder. The concern was that this type of equipment isn't really easy to seize. That you need people that know how to operate it, you need special types of transport for it, because much of it is not allowed on the highway.
By itself.
By
I
itself,
don't think
no.
any of it is.
There's one kind of flatbed that has a it's more of not a feller buncher, it's more of the grapple that can go on the
Oh,
highway,
yeah, a
right?
truck, usually a
Truck.
truck with a grabber.
And, but then there was a concern of who's gonna store it? How do you maintain it when it is stored? So there was just a lot of questions and maybe some anxiety about how to actually seize this type of equipment. And then House Judiciary, certain members of House Judiciary just don't like seizure. They don't think it's equitable. They don't think the way that the revenue from forfeiture proceedings and how that revenue is allocated is equitable, because right now, most of it goes for law enforcement. They sell the property and it goes, but it doesn't go to the crime victim.
Who sells the property?
There's
Oh, the seized property.
Right, yeah, and there's a whole court proceeding for that.
Well, and knowing that crew a little bit, I doubt they own anything anyways. It's all mortgaged right to the.
Well, that's the other concern, and before you get to the sale of that equipment, you have to give the lien holder opportunity to assert their lien and say, that's my property. And the other concerning scenario was, it's you're borrowing someone else's property. And they don't know that you are using it illegally. And then their equipment gets seized, and so they have a right to come forward and say that the property shouldn't be sold at a forfeiture proceeding because it is their property and they had no knowledge of its use in a violation. So yes, there was concern that even if there was seizure and there was forfeiture, there might not be much left.
No,
Um,
did you look into what maybe Maine does or some other
Yeah,
timber state?
yeah, like if you look around the country, there, well, let's just step back. Seizure is a tool that's often authorized in other states for failing to comply with a court order. Right? And that's something that can happen in Vermont too. If you're not gonna comply with you're seeing it play out on the national stage right now, the bond that Trump is required to post. If he can't post it, they will seize his assets in order to fulfill that judgment. And so that authority is there. And so, yes, it is a tool in other states, South Carolina, out in the west, of some of the bigger forestry states out there, Washington. I can't remember it being. But there's a new organization, I think you've heard from them. Well, they're not new, but they're new in Vermont.
The timber people?
Professional logging contractor. And their executive director has been involved, and he was okay with seizure. But
I mean, he actually thought it would work.
well, that's, but I think what the sponsor of the bill was intending is that it would only take one or two seizures to have a deterrent effect on some of these actors. If they knew that law enforcement could take the equipment, then they would be less inclined to commit the act again.
Yeah, those line jumpers. They're bad. I mean, the only thing that deter them, put them away. Put them in jail for 90 days or 120 days, they'll lose, if they did own their equipment, they'd lose it. I mean, they'd really be, they wouldn't be able to steal from anybody else during those 120 days unless, you know, they could pick a guard's pocket or something, they, I mean,
But you still have the issue of what they have done, right? And
oh, there's no recourse, they have no money.
the example I remember was from the second time I worked on this issue. It was a nature conservancy plot. They had a contract to work on this side, and they basically went like 20 yards into the nature conservancy area and like mowed it down. It was like a road through on the property line, and they just took everything. They just took everything. And it was pretty amazing. Pictures were pretty amazing. It was like somebody had that. It was pictures were during the winter. It was like somebody had got a ski trail through the woods.
Do they try to run or do they stick around and?
They took it. They all, by the time it was, that's the thing. By the time that this is discovered, sometimes they're gone.
Oh, yeah,
They're
they are
gone.
there, they're all, I mean, you won't, with that equipment today, you can cut a lot of wood in a
Very short time.
short period of. And I don't know if any of you remember, but some guys went up on the back side of J Peak and they cut a ski trail. So they could ski down the back side of J to Alpine Haven, I think, or something. I mean, those guys got in a heck of a lot of trouble. But these guys, I mean, it doesn't matter what you do to them, they don't have anything.
Yeah.
The only thing they have is time. So if you take the time away from them, then they're really being punished. But they have old junk trucks that, yeah, I wouldn't even use down in the gravel pit, you know, that haul the wood. I mean, it's unreal. And boy, they can rob you of a lot, you know, good hardwood is very expensive.
Well,
You know, maple
It's
or
always-
birch and-
it's always been a problem.
I mean, and there isn't, I don't think that many of them, but
No,
they seem to find jobs. I mean, see, I wonder if that would be something if they had to post a bond with them.
They do have to post that. That is gonna be added to the timber trespass law in H614. And it's increasing the bond underneath the land improvement. There's currently a home improvement fraud crime. And that's being expanded to include home improvement is basically about the structure. It's being expanded to home improvement and land improvement. And the bond that you would need to post is being increased from $50,000 to $250,000.
so and that bond covers if you cross the line.
If you subsequently violate, then the AG law enforcement can use that bond to it's a penalty effectively. You would be forfeiting that amount of money,
And who is the holder of the bond?
the attorney general.
And who requires the logger to produce the bond?
As the law does, the statute does. The court, I mean, if you want to continue operating, you have two options. You can go to work for some other company that you don't have a personal connection with. They're not a member of your family, they're not a prior business associate. So you just don't restructure your corporate structure to put your 12-year-old as the CEO, right? So you can continue to have a profession but you're going to work for somebody else that hasn't violated in the past. Or you post $250,000 with the Attorney General. If you fail to post, if you fail to notify the AG of that posting, those are both crimes.
So, but you don't need a license to be a wood harvester.
You don't need, that was originally discussed. Originally discussed when the bill was being put together, drafted. Concept was proposed to the Department of Forest and Parks and Recreation and to OPR. And they both expressed reluctance at that time.
See, I mean, you talk with, like Sam Lunkin. You know, I've always heard good things about his operation. Well, the way the logging has been, you know, they're hanging on by the fingernails because of the wet weather, no frost, no freeze, you know, to get in the woods. And, you know, they had to buy, say, a $200,000 loan. I don't know, that might do the good ones in. The bad ones would just keep on going with no bond, and who's gonna prosecute it?
Well, one of the things that the House Ag Committee looked into is how easy it is to get a $50,000 surety or $50,000 bond. It's not hard.
So it doesn't cost.
Right. It doesn't cost much, and so that's why they went from 50 to 250 to make it more of a consequence if you are not to violate.
Well, at least you have a lot of knowledge on the subject, so.
So you're the individual, they've crossed over, they've got. The process is just go to court.
So you have two options.
Okay.
You can try to get law enforcement to prosecute for that.
Good luck.
Or you can bring, there's a specific civil action that's authorized underneath the same chapter. And there's default amounts for each type. You can either show the fair market value of what was taken and the damages caused in the taking, or you can go there in statute, there's default values for each size tree that was taken.
I'm pretty clear about how we get stumpage.
Right.
I'm just interested.
But yes, you're right.
The few cases I've ever been involved in, one, old lady in her middle 80s, the woodlot up on, the side of a mountain. The logger comes in and, everything good ways into her, and there was a clear stone wall, and she had 60 acres and they cleaned her out. Well, she was not in any position to know anything about anything herself, you know, and they knew that. And they cleaned her out.
Right, and even if you go to court and you get an award.
Yeah.
They may not pay, they may not have, you should talk to, and he'll be here whenever you take this up. Is a gentleman from Plainfield who had who's been pursuing changes to the law for some time now. And is, kind of very actively following stuff, like, I can't remember Mike's name. But he has a story that basically wraps up all of the scenarios.
Well, the big thing is, I think the punishment has got to be so severe. Not monetarily, because they have no money, so you aren't gonna ever get a dime out. So it's either gotta be through bonding thing and insurance thing, or lock them up, because they had no, you wouldn't get $10 though. Your judge could order them to pay whatever, it wouldn't matter. And nobody gets punished. And the only thing they had is criminal. So if you take that away from them, put them in a little cage for a while, then they would actually lose. But anyways, thank you, Michael.
You're welcome.
We'll have fun with that, baby.
Excited. Let's pick the poultry parts next.
Arts is
Yeah, you have a chainsaw that's as big as you are, you'd be a good woodcutter.
I landscaped all throughout high school and college, and in the spring is when you go and you plant trees, but before you plant trees, you have to take the dead ones out.
Yep.
So I was on a crew. They didn't give us a chainsaw. I had these two like marvelously deluded maniacs that were best friends that had Tasmanian devil twin tattoos on their shoulders. And they would wrestle the trees out of the ground. And if they couldn't wrestle a tree out of the ground, then I would come with a chainsaw. So
That's great.
Mark and Drew.
Thank you, Michael. So, good morning.
Morning.
So we're back on chickens.
Parts is part. Remember the Wendy's commercial from the 80s?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, we have some
We
questions.
just had a quick question the other day.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. You've got them,
It
Irene?
wasn't my question, but.
I'm glad you brought somebody to help you.
Me too. Thank you, Senator Westman, for pointing out my inadequacies.
I didn't say that. I just said.
So can we come up?
We've got the house plan right on the 20,000.
Yeah.
I'll try to recap. You get the good last time.
So,
I feel lost in this chair. See, I can't even touch my feet.
So to the best of my ability to, because I don't have the notes in front of me, in fact, I didn't take any notes. I think the committee's in favor of the bill. But we probably want to tweak it a little bit to focus primarily on the small farmer. The ones that are under $1,000 and then between 1,000 and 499, 4,999. To come up with a plan that allows them to do what they want to do without being overly burdensome. Whether that, as Caroline Gordon from rural Vermont said, that they would get a consultation, I think is the term that she used, or a visit from the agency to just help people understand, okay, if you're gonna go from 1,500 to 4,000, be aware some of this stuff could happen and you need to make sure that you understand that. That's where we were. I think the 20,000, since at least the testimony we've received, there's nobody in Vermont doing 20,000 anyway. So I think we would like to just leave the whole bird provision there and then work on the two levels below that to allow them to part.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
So you're thinking about a potential additional trigger within the 1,000 to 5,000 category that requires?
I don't know if that's,
Yeah.
if that's the right thing to do or not.
you said the other day, or the last time we were in there. You visit some of these people and they're almost to the point where they could have a licensed facility.
Absolutely.
And what we're a little concerned about is, you got to 1,000 pretty, everybody's pretty good, 100 a week, 100 birds a week. But when you double that and go to, say, 2,000, your speed has to pick up, or you have to have more help, which you don't usually get. And your chances of, we don't want anybody to get sick. So your chances of contaminating the chicken, could that increase, or have you seen where it could increase? Do they usually do the whole 1,000 birds at once and freeze them? And then each week they take out a certain number, or
So I can only speak for our inspected facilities because those are the ones we regulate, those are the ones we do the bird inspection on. So those, depending on the size, like we heard from Happy Bird, they can do 150 to 200 birds in a slaughter. So they do the birds, they slaughter the birds, they put them in the chill tank. And once the temperatures are down, they usually pack them off, put them away, and then we'll process them the next day. So it's a when you're cutting them, you've got to do a couple processes. The birds have got to get chilled before you can do anything. Someone like Maple Wind, they can do up to 1,500 a day. And then, but that goes directly into a chiller, so they have a different chilling process than most of the folks do. Same thing like with the bigger places like Misty Knoll. So it just goes, right through, but they have a whole different system. So everything kind of goes through and it's chilled by the time it gets to the end. I mean, they're just, very automated. But most of these people, I'm assuming, are just processing what they're gonna bring to market, that week. I don't know though, because I don't regulate them and I don't work with them unless they call, unless they need technical advice or services that we can provide for them. But I'm assuming what they will do is like what you said, they'll slaughter 100 or so. And then the next day they'll probably park them out, package them up and get them ready for the market. I don't know if they freeze them or refrigerate them and hoping that they're gonna sell them fresh, which they might. I mean, they're not gonna, but what they do is they're buying chicks at different times. So each chicks are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, so they're getting processed at different intervals.
Yeah.
So that's the way it kind of flows. So you'll have like maybe these, 25 chicks that are moving upward, into the, the pound rate that they need to be for slaughter. And then they've got the other chicks that are gonna be coming up the next week and the next week and the next week. So that's what I'm assuming they're all doing, because that's what our regulated.
so the markets are usually on the weekend. So the first part of the week, they may be getting them ready, but you think the numbers are each week they do their slaughter for that weekend?
That's what I'm guessing,
Yeah.
but I don't think we heard from, we actually got the
Maybe
testimony on
should-
how they actually do the slaughter.
People that are selling.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not of that mind of questioning what's been going on, because I understand they're already processing whole birds. They have the routine down, they have the equipment. So the fact that they need to part them a second day doesn't bother me. I have full confidence that they want to keep their reputations. They don't want to poison anyone. They are dealing face to face with their customers. So I have no concerns whatsoever, as opposed to my colleagues here, about keeping the levels the way they are and trusting that these farmers are doing the best they can to keep things sanitary and to do processes that mimic, if not mirror, what the inspected farms are doing. I could be totally wrong, but my impression is that I have no reason to question why they can't part them as just a new process on top of what they're already doing to slaughter and chill and freeze or whatever they're doing. already.
Sure, and we agree with that as well, because we want these farmers to grow. We want them to be able to add on to what they're producing and at some point come under inspection. And they can't do that at this point because they don't have a facility, they don't have the means. But doing this, they help boost those means and get them into a facility at some point.
I mean, just to add on to that, in reality, the greatest risk is probably the smallest producers most of the time. Not to say that we should change that, but they don't have to have a facility. They may have, but generally speaking, having the controlled environment of a facility is better than not having that. So, and currently you need to go to a facility once you get over that 1,000 bird threshold. So there are built-in greater standards for greater capacity. I think a lot of the folks who are under the 1,000 threshold are probably mostly seasonal. Doing it during, not so much in the winter, doing it more for the farmers markets, doing it for, when it's more conducive to doing, if they don't have a facility at least. So I don't know. I mean, right now, we have jurisdiction over these exempt folks, but we don't inspect them. So we only really have an opportunity to go there if we have a reason to, which would be that they ask us to, or there's a complaint about something. So it's not that we're without authority, but there is no regular kind of built-in inspection process. So
Well, and I mean, if there's, I don't know how many of them there even are,
we
but
don't either.
say if there was 25, that would be quite an uptick for you folks. And we certainly, none of us have heard of any problems, and you folks would hear about it real quick if there was. So things seem to be, but there's a big difference between a whole bird and parting a bird L and, the table that you do the parting L on. And then, the knives that you use and whereas with a whole bird, you don't do a whole lot of cutting but I guess, see, we thought we were gonna do the 4,999 or 5,000. And then above that would be the whole birds. Because we can't find anybody that even does buy for 3.
We're not aware of anyone that exceeds the 5,000, which doesn't mean there may not be somebody who wants to, and it is easier to sell parted birds than it is a whole bird. But we would certainly prefer that once they get to that level that they are inspected, and that benefits them. I mean, I think they would prefer that too. Because it's a lot of the same standards that you need to have once you get over 5,000 to be inspected or not inspected. But once you're inspected, you open up a whole market that you otherwise don't get, so.
But you do have time if people call in with questions, you take those.
Always, yes, and if they want a site visit, we go. I mean, we've done that, I testified, I think last time I was here about an exempt poultry producer that I just went and visited.
Yep.
Who wants to go on inspection a year from now. So, yeah, we will, we've done it many times, they're always willing.
You haven't had anyone call about setting up a small slaughter facility for chickens and turkeys. See, that's,
You mean a complaint that somebody's setting up something close to them or,
no,
okay,
wanting
A new
to
one.
know the specs to set up a new one. You haven't had any inquiries.
yes, we've had several this year.
Or you have,
Yeah, we have.
well,
And we're working with them and one is pretty significant. So, yeah,
because we got those people from Chester. is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That drive way to Rhode Island to get their birds.
But I think they go to a federal facility down there, I believe, right?
Correct.
So then they can sell them everywhere. They don't have to do that, but that's what they want to do so that they have access to the interstate market. Which doesn't mean they wouldn't prefer to go closer than Rhode Island, but, yeah.
And what I did not want to happen was, because her name was Taylor, I think, they do 750 now, they wanna do 1,500, or maybe they already have started. I didn't want life to change for her or them to any great degree. I wanted to be as easy a transition and to continue to grow and get bigger. And that's all I really wanted. And I also, just to be fair, don't want to put any more work on your plates either, but you gotta go see everybody now. You gotta,
Yeah.
because I don't think that's needed either. So,
Yeah, and we do, you know, I can't say there have never been foodborne illnesses because foodborne illnesses do arise in Vermont. There is a process to investigate that, and certain illnesses have to be reported to the Department of Health, which doesn't mean there's always an answer, but they do get investigated. They do coordinate with us if they believe it's from a facility or an expected origin point. So there's no perfect process, but there is a process in place to try to track down the origins of foodborne pathogens, so that if it does get traced back to a place, we would certainly be made aware of that and have an opportunity, which doesn't do anything about what's happened, but it may have some prospective, relief for what may happen.
Yep.
as far as we know, at least I'm trying to remember, the health department didn't have any issues with this, I don't believe.
No,
Yeah,
no, they didn't have any concerns.
yeah.
With them.
USDA is fine, we're not violating anything there.
This is permissible under federal law. In fact, even federal law even goes farther.
Yeah.
It allows cooking, which is what we were really
We didn't want that.
But, yeah.
Yeah.
We don't need to do anything.
No, we don't have to do a whole lot. No, I think I got one. No, I think we're in very good shape.
And I just wanted to mention one thing too, I know it was mentioned about guidelines for the exempt poultry slaughter.
Right.
We have those on our website, and it kind of like goes through everything, it goes through, technical assistance, it goes through if you need grant money, how to process the bird, what the exemption is, how to process that, and what the sanitation requirements are.
So you have all.
We've had it on our website. We have to go and change it, of course, after we find out what's passed. But yeah, we do have that on our website, folks.
Let's say how to pronounce giblet.
But we could.
I think most people say giblet, but I.
Yeah. And so that's right on your website.
It is,
Guidelines for slaughter.
yep, for the exempt poultry, yes. I can leave this here if you'd like to.
Oh,
Yeah, we can find it.
But if one.
I have copies. So.
I'll get it on your website.
Can you think of anything we're not thinking of?
You know, we had proposed, there were a couple things I think when I first talked to you that I referenced. One was we had proposed a ready to cook definition, so just better define what's part of the chicken parts. But the House Committee didn't like it, and honestly, it probably doesn't make a whole lot of difference. It was an effort to make it a little clearer about what to do with what parts. But they did adopt the request that you label what's there. The other thing we had suggested was right now, if you're under 1,000, you need to label your product, but you don't have to let us know that you're labeling it. And we had suggested you do if you're in the under 5,000, if you're under the 20,000, you have to come to us to get your label pre-approved, which doesn't necessarily do anything, but it creates that contact. It allows us to give them guidance if they need it. If their label doesn't meet the requirement, it allows us to correct them. So we had suggested adding that to the under 1,000 group as well, just so that there is that contact, so they know they have resources, but the House Committee didn't want to do that, and it's not a requirement now. It's whole birds versus parted, so we don't.
So there is requirements, what they have to put on the label.
Correct. Correct. The only distinction is whether they have to come to us first. And so we just thought it'd be a good idea if they make that contact with us to begin with, just so that we know of each other and we can give the guidance, but it's not in existence now. They don't have to do it now. And we don't feel strongly about it. We just thought it was
I think there's wording of the size of the.
There is, of the font.
So.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, you're right. The legal requirement is stagnant. The only difference would be whether they have to come to us.
Right.
And when you say come to us, how do they do that?
They send the label in. They just send it in. Well, I should say, not all of them do. But the ones that we contact or provide technical service to, we say, you know, the guidelines say you need to send that in, and they'll send it in. So if they read the guidelines, they'll know exactly what they need to do. Some forget, so when we're out there and we see them and, you know, we'll say, oh, you know, we just remind them, please send that label to us. It's just a requirement and we keep it on file.
But in statute, the legal requirements are clear. I mean, if you go to the right part, you know what to put on the label. It's
Not
not.
inspected,
Yes. Safe handling.
Name it, I mean, it's got name of the farm, name of the, it will have now name of the part, you know, it's really identifying the product. And then making sure that consumers know that it's not inspected and what they have to do to cook it to make it
well,
safe.
so they're gonna have to have more than one label. If, like,
They'll have-
glass.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So they're gonna get a little money tied up in
Because that's the
the
level.
paper.
See that.
Or just print themselves. I mean, right, people have
Absolutely.
their own
Yeah.
printers now, you
Yeah.
can buy label sheets.
There's
It's not
That's as
much of a hassle as it used to be.
Right.
any
Hmm.
other questions?
No, thank you very much.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Has anyone, Senator Starr, pointed out how outstanding that jacket is? 'Cause I feel like
It really is.
It's spring.
It is.
That's
Enjoy the
Easter
donut.
clock.
Rodney Graham's donuts, there's maple in there.
Is
You're
there?
good.
Oh, thank you.
Well,
yeah, I
No, you were the prize.
I assumed that today was gonna be 70 and the sunshine.
Okay.
Supposed to be.
Didn't miss by much.
Or maybe a month.
40 degrees.
Yeah,
Okay, so maybe we got it all answered. I don't know.
I think we do.
Thank you.
I think it's okay. We do, we're comfortable with it, if you all are.
Okay.
Yeah.
and more importantly, the health department doesn't even want to talk to them.
And I think the farmers who hopefully are still listening and watching
They,
will be relieved.
yeah.
Yeah.
Feels like it. No, I think we're in good order.
Great.
Well, thank you, sorry
Thank
to
you.
drag you back over,
Oh.
but we did have a few questions.
No, our pleasure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, well,
We're glad you came.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet
Have to
you
get
all.
those checked.
Sorry, thank you.
Okay.
Did,
I haven't heard anything.
Dave Huber's going to call you.
You ready to
Okay,
finish?
okay. I did talk to him about it. He's going to, and
Okay.
so
we have some,
we'll, this gonna.
I'll talk to you in a second.